Welcome to The Read Along,
a mini book club for your ears.
I'm your host, Scott.
I'm your other host, Anita.
And join us on a journey through a good book,
one chapter at a time.
Do you like talking about movies? Do you like talking about mediocre movies? Do you like talking about how you could have fixed mediocre movies? Well, I certainly do, and you can listen to me, Scott C. Bourgeois, along with my co-hosts Greg Beaver and Liam Creswick, as we give our notes, and I have some notes. You can follow it now on your podcatcher of choice, or support it by visiting patreon.com/IHaveSomeNotes. Long weekend.
Yeah.
Don't know why I felt the need to sing that, but...
Look, some long weekends are worth celebrating.
Yeah, this one was a weird one because weather-wise it's been kind of lousy.
It was cold and rainy.
Yeah, but very productive to a certain extent. We managed to get a lot of house stuff done.
Yep.
We took the kids swimming because we couldn't really do any outside stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to go outside and play and do things when it's rainy and windy and cold.
Yeah, for the long weekend, the fair was in town, or at least at the local mall. They had set up a little midway there, and the kids were very interested in going, but it was so cool and wet all weekend. It's just like, no.
Sorry, it's not going to be as much fun as you think it is.
Not in the rain.
When you're freezing cold and soaking wet.
Yeah, so we took them swimming as a consolation prize. They had a great time,
oh,
but we are both exhausted.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, but
we're here to talk about a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're recording a little later. This is the Read Along After Dark. Because we're recording a little later due to the kids having been home today, but we're making it happen, making it work.
Yeah,
and
doing the thing.
We've got quite a chapter to cover.
Oh my goodness, there's so much crunch to go through.
Yeah, there's a lot of information in this chapter. So
yeah.
Let's get into it, starting with a recap of our previous chapter, which was chapter 20, in which the crew gets informed of the unfortunate demise of the vampire Beckett Kingston. Cornelia has a little breakdown over that and then has to go to answer some questions from the police. Theodore goes to accompany her because he believes that he can help absolve her of any guilt.
Quote unquote help.
Diana and Mallory take the time to run a few more of the tests and look at some of the CCTV footage that they've been putting off. And then Cornelia returns to inform them that Theodore has inadvertently nearly confessed to murder. And that leads us into chapter 21 of The Undetectables by Courtney Smyth.
We open with Cornelia's return again from the police station.
Yeah, because last chapter she set out to go and get this squared away.
Yeah.
Using the evidence that they had pieced together that more or less absolved Theodore of having committed these crimes.
Yeah, so she was basically allowed to plead her case, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and she freely admits that if she were not who she was...
It probably wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked. Like, she wouldn't have even been given the time of day by the police. She loudly and proudly proclaims this is due to her privilege.
Oh, yeah. And she's, well aware of it, at least this time around. So while she does not return home with Theodore, she feels the odds are good that they're going to let him go. Yeah,
the police said that they more or less believe a lot of the hard data that she presented them, and unfortunately the Ghoul Council needs to do some follow-up.
I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's police code for something. I don't know.
Well, we know what the Ghoul Council is.
Yes, but I don't know what they need to follow up means.
I don't know.
Exactly.
They will need to review the data.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is our hope that Theodore gets to come home.
Yeah.
Pretty soon.
So
and that's sort of where Cornelia has to leave it.
Yeah, Cornelia needs some time to, decompress.
Ugh. She needs to process, I think, too.
And, and so she's like, look, we've still got this stack of books that we ordered about all of this stuff. I'm going to go take a look at that while you guys continue doing your nerd stuff. and we'll touch base again a little later. And not a half hour passes when she comes bursting back into the room and is like, look, I know I said that I wanted to go do my own thing, but you need to hear about this right now.
But I found a thing.
So she was going through the book that Observer Johnson had pointed her at. And she's like, now, first of all, this is a very old book, essentially of fairy tales.
Yeah, it's sort of like she picked up the witch version of the Canterbury Tales.
Kinda, yeah.
Some, like, ambiguous stories written in ye olde English.
Yeah, with a historical but slightly fictionalized and very highly romanticized version of things. And she gets to a part, and she paraphrases it for Diana and Mallory, explaining kind of how the Turnian sort of came to be. And it more or less kind of spells out the ritual that we can kind of believe that the Whistler might be trying to enact.
Right? There's a lot of maybes and kind ofs in this, because this text is written with a lot of religious and scholarly ambiguity.
Which is how she puts it, yeah.
Yeah, because she can't seem to get a solid, clear answer to her question, from the book, which is what happened. How did the Turnian come to be? Who are these people? Like, are there any actual details, or any of these stories the same?
Yeah, and that's interesting because, and she even kind of mentions, it harkens back to the fact that Observer Johnson also was not willing to give them any straight answers about this.
No, probably because he didn't have any either.
Very likely.
That's my guess.
And it's all kind of putting together a very suspicious picture.
Or not?
Like, kind of
yes, but maybe?
Kind of no, because Cornelia's like, this is really starting to make it look like it's possible that the Turnian committed some ritualistic murders in order to become the Turnian.
Yeah, and from a particular point of view, yeah, that's exactly what it looks like.
That's certainly what's being implied.
Yeah, but again, is it really?
And like, what does that have to say about the occulture? Like, granted, the Turnian brought the occulture together. The modern occulture exists because of whatever they did, but is it founded on 7 ritualistic murders? Because that's not great.
I don't know.
They're not exactly comfortable with the implication that might be what happened.
Right? Even, like, I think it was Mallory points out, like, so a bunch of people were killed and we're all okay with this?
We're just okay with this.
And everyone's fine?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be. That's not really great.
Yeah. And it certainly seems like the Whistler's trying to reenact this. Now, Observer Johnson suggested that it might be in an effort to summon the Turnian, but if the Turnian became essentially gods because of this, could the Whistler be trying to obtain a sort of divinity?
Maybe?
By enacting the same ritual?
Joining
the Turnian, as it were?
I don't know. Or it's just as possible that he is trying to undo what was done by, like, ritualing in reverse.
Well, yeah,
right?
Because
to take down the Turnian.
That's exactly what my brain kind of settled on as well, was because the Whistler has, in the scant communications Jacob has sent the group, has implied that he's undertaking this task as a measure of justice. So does he believe that the Turnian needs to be called to justice for the crimes they committed to become the Turnian?
Maybe.
And is he summoning them to enact that justice upon them?
Well, also, we can't entirely prove that it's Jacob yet, but you are leaning super hard into that theory.
At any rate, that's kind of where I landed, but it's not necessarily where the girls land, because, of course, they're still fairly convinced that Van Doren is trying to do this in some crazed bid for power.
Yeah.
That's certainly where Mallory's mind is at.
I think so. And the Undetectables hit on the theory that we had a chapter or two ago. One, that the Whistler is set collecting.
Yes.
Right? Because we have an apparent, a fairy, and a vampire now.
And they're assuming that means that there could be a troll,
a demon, and a witch.
And a witch who would be the next 3 victims.
Yeah, or what's missing.
And then you just basically you double up on one for the last murder to have an extra, to have a spare.
Which makes me think that if this line of reasoning is true, right, if this is actually what's happening, that the 7th is somehow important.
Could be.
Right?
What if the 7th is a ghost? What if Theodore is the last victim?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
What if you need a ghost to finish it?
Maybe.
Because ghosts are kind of their own thing.
Kind of.
The few ghosts that are around.
That's what I mean. Maybe the 7th is significant somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
Because Jacob keeps obliquely saying, say hi to Theodore for me. So he might be building up to Theodore being the final sacrifice.
That would suck.
Just saying, it's possible.
Grown fond of Theodore.
And that's, again, assuming that Jacob is our killer. Pretty sure Jacob is the killer. At any rate.
Also, I think it was Mallory pointed out how so far the victims are getting closer and closer to Cornelia.
Well, to them specifically.
Them specifically, I point out Cornelia very specifically,
yeah.
right? A stranger, a friend, and now a boyfriend. They're creeping closer and closer. Like, someone's going to lose a family member next, and that sucks.
But the reason why I suspect that might be the case is because the Undetectables are investigating the murders, and the Whistler put them on the case and is now, like, doing the murders around them to keep them strung along.
Maybe? I still hold in the back of my mind the theory that these 3 girls are important.
Oh, they definitely are.
No, that they are somehow, like, representative of the Turnian, you know?
If Jacob is the one who set them up because he's the Whistler, then absolutely he picked them for a reason. It's not totally random.
No.
Yeah. Cornelia also suggests that it's possible Beckett was targeted because he was recently empowered, but Mallory's like, I'm not sure that's the case. I think that maybe it was because he's a vampire. I think that him having just bitten you was coincidental.
Let's be honest, it probably was.
Yeah, she's not willing to completely dismiss it, but she's also like, I'm leaning hard on that maybe just having been a convenient thing that happened.
Yeah.
At any rate, they also decide they need to get a post-mortem sample from Beckett at this point. So they can get some information. And
this is where things happen.
Yeah, so they're like, hey, would you happen to have been invited to a funeral or anything? And
because she gets the message saying his funeral is like right away.
Vampires don't sit on things.
Yeah,
apparently.
No, like his funeral is right away. I'm not invited. Kin only.
Yeah. Well, they were only newly an item, she says, so it makes sense that she might not be invited. But apparently it's a tight-knit thing, as you said, kin only. And they're like, we're crashing this vampire funeral.
Well, they try to crash the vampire funeral. The best they do is sneak into sort of a vampire funeral.
Yeah, they witness the vampire ritual. It's very different from the fairy one.
So, okay, they head up to Beckett's family, the house, the Kingston house.
Which, if we thought Cornelia came for money, apparently Beckett also came for money.
Oh, my goodness. I love that Diana calls it an F-off vampire castle.
Oh, yeah. It's like full-on Dracula's castle.
Yeah, like
Gothic
castle.
architecture. Yeah, like gargoyles. It's
dark, made of stone.
Picture a Halloween vampire castle.
Yeah.
That's what this place looks like.
That's basically what this place looks like.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And it's like a weird off-putting ceremony. It's very rigid and formal.
It's very quiet.
It's super quiet.
They're outside, hiding in the bushes, and Cornelia casts a listening spell and basically produces a magic screen for them to watch about what happens. And it's a whole bunch of vampires, like hundreds of them.
Sitting around a table,
Sitting around, silently eating something. And then what they realize is Beckett's coffin, as the centerpiece, rises into the air, dropping this veil around it. And then, like, a whole bunch of light happens, and he bursts into flames.
Yeah, like UV lights hit him, and he is immediately incinerated. And they're like, well, there goes our chance to get a sample.
Yeah, so much for that. Also, they're outside hiding in the bushes, which is, like, the worst thing that Mallory can do.
Yeah, they hear someone coming, and they scramble to find a hiding place and manage to duck into, like, the coat room.
Basically.
And that's when who else but Jacob walks in.
Okay. So, on the one hand, I'm glad they were caught by Jacob.
Because he's not going to
squeal.
Squeal.
Right? He's not going to sound any alarms. And they're like, you didn't see us. And he's like, you're right, I didn't see you. And then he talks a bunch.
We've all got secrets to keep.
Basically. So, on the one hand, great. Jacob's not going to rat them out. On the other hand, now Jacob knows they were there.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
And if your theory holds true, and it's really starting to look like it's gonna, this is information that he probably didn't need and may or may not give him some kind of weird advantage. I don't know.
At any rate, he's there to grab their coats because he and Van Doren were both in attendance.
Yeah.
Which, that rankles the girls a little bit because they were like, we were told kin only. Why is Mr. Politician here?
Yes.
Yeah. Jacob also gives his apologies when he finds out that Cornelia and Beckett were close. And then says, hey, say hi to Theodore for me before he ducks out. She's mentioned a couple times last times he saw them.
Yeah. He obviously doesn't know that Theodore is still in ghost jail.
No. However, this also gives Mallory an idea, because apparently someone else was in attendance. Dr. Ray.
A bunch of these people related to Beckett suddenly.
A kin-only event. But Mallory's like, hey, Diana, you mentioned that you were dating Dr. Ray's assistant. Could we get the samples we need from her? And Diana's like, I will make a phone call.
So basically, Diana has this network of ex-girlfriends that she
she's
can
gotten
tap
around.
into.
And I say this without any sort of shaming to Diana whatsoever. She's gotten around.
Yes, apparently.
If
she
anything,
has people everywhere.
Not shaming her, if anything, in awe.
Just impressed.
Yeah. But she's actually, as the chapter kind of gets into the last part, successfully able to get that information.
Yeah.
Both the case file and some samples.
So she gets some samples, she gets the police file, and then through a different ex-girlfriend, she gets a review of the CCTV footage.
From the Quinn Hotel, yeah.
Yes, from the Quinn Hotel.
And it does turn out that Gray Quinn has a rock-solid alibi. He is on camera at the event, literally the whole event, schmoozing or being around at a table. Van Doren, unfortunately, does not.
He disappears for a period of time.
For about 40 minutes during the time that the murder took place. He is unaccounted for.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried for Gray Quinn, by the way. He's the only named demon in the book, and we know that the Whistler might go after a demon, so I would not be surprised if he ends up as Perimortem 4 or 5.
Well, to be fair, we're guessing that a demon is next.
Yeah. Well,
or at least soon coming,
and we
possibly.
we don't have a named troll.
No.
In the story,
We
so
don't. We have lots of named witches, though.
we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Pink.
Yeah, so they test Beckett's post-mortem sample in the magical spectrum device, and it comes back pink this time.
Mm-hmm.
His pre-mortem sample was...
The, smoky, sooty kind of thing.
And I have to believe that's because he was just oozing with witch magic at the time that he was murdered.
Makes sense.
And so he would come back registering as a witch.
Makes sense.
That still holds true then, that the Whistler magic coming back as pink magic is because it's borrowed magic. If it's Jacob using it and he's an apparent and he's using magically empowered knives that are powered by witches,
Yeah.
then it tracks to me that it would read as witch magic.
Well, here's the thing, though. It doesn't necessarily read as witch magic because pink might still be its own thing, as opposed to diluted red.
Because the first witch magic that they had tested came back red. And specifically, at that time, they had tested Diana's magical DNA. I was going to say DNA. And Mallory's. They tested the two of them. They both came back red. They didn't test Cornelia's, interestingly.
I wonder if hers would come back pink.
And that might help explain what the pink color is about.
Maybe?
But it is also worth noting that in the chapter where they test the magical DNA of several people, both Ben and Custer's samples come back as pink.
Yes.
Just like Beckett's now does.
Yes. So they're all connected by the pink color. What we need to know is pink its own thing, or is pink a dilution of red?
Hard to say.
We'll have to...
And
I can't figure that out.
And it's
That's
also,
not my job.
yeah, and it's also worth noting that both Van Doren and Sully's samples came back pink.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly what that's about.
We don't know what that means either.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and find out. That's more or less where the chapter wraps up, though.
Yeah, pretty much.
Some more information, but still a lot of mystery left.
Mostly Mallory going, we have to figure out what pink means.
Kinda, yeah.
I wonder if Van Doren and Sully just haven't been, contaminated
It's possible.
with pink?
Because both of them have presumably been in contact with Jacob.
Well, and O'Sullivan for sure, because she's the inspector assigned to the case, so she's been to all of these murder sites.
So if there was let's call it background radiation.
Yeah, okay.
From this magic that the victims are contaminated with, Sully, having been to several of the murder scenes, would have been contaminated by it.
Same thing with Van Doren.
And if Van Doren's been around, but also if Jacob's the one committing the murders, he's Van Doren's assistant.
Yeah.
So Van Doren would also radiate the same magical radiation.
If this is a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
But it tracks. It would explain why both of their samples came back matching the killer sample.
Yeah.
They theoretically can't both be the killer.
Theoretically. I don't know. We don't know how this works yet.
We don't.
So there's just a bunch of theories and possibilities swimming around in my head.
Indeed.
I imagine this is what it feels like to be an undetectable.
Possibly. Maybe we'll find out more about what it's like to be an undetectable as we move into our next chapter. chapter 22 of our novel, which you'll want to read up on in time for next week. In the meantime, of course, as always, you can give us a little rating and review because we like that.
And it's nice.
Yeah.
It helps us out a little bit.
Yeah. You can also fire us off a missive via social media.
Ugh. Yeah, honestly, pick your poison. We are on Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Goodreads. We're at the Read Along on any of those that require the at.
We're also thereadalong@gmail.com.
Yes, feel free to send us an email if social media doesn't have enough characters for you.
Correct. And with that said, as always, we love you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Discoveries of Pink.
Thank you for joining us on The Read Along with your hosts, Anita and Scott Bourgeois. All Read Along music is by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Cover art is by Aaron Beaver. Be sure to join us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Read Along, and check out our group on Goodreads.com.